All right, it is now 6:02 p.m. So let's go ahead and get the meeting started. I'm calling this meeting of the Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 Community Working Group to order. We'll begin with the attendance roll call. Julie Armstrong. Myrna Bays.
Present.
Sydney Bethel Price.
Present.
Liliana Cardenas.
She said she would be remote, she might not see the PC.
JP Coughlin.
Present.
Janelyn Granillo.
Here.
Patrick McNamara. Patrick
Here,
Mc.
online.
Robert Moore. Here. Donald Ortiz.
Here.
Shane Peterlin. Sarbaswar Praharaj.
Here.
Catherine Schmidt.
Here.
David Sokolowski.
Here.
Ann Till.
Here.
Logan Tokos.
Here.
Nolan Williams.
And Andre, Lily just joined.
Okay. Perfect. All right, number for a quorum was 14. Is that correct? 9. Okay, we need 9 for a quorum. We have 14. All right. So let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. All right, we have. Okay. Any all opposed to approving the minutes from the previous meeting? Myrna?
I actually do have an adjustment that needs to be made to the minutes.
Okay,
On item number 3, the 6th public commenter was listed as member of the public name not mentioned, and it's actually Kristen Lilly.
Kristen Lilly. Are there any opposed to including that in the minutes from the previous meeting? All right, any additional amendments?
So there was one individual who attempted to submit a comment card named Jennifer Warner, and I hope that is read into the record at some point during this process.
That's the ones here that you have.
Yes,
I just want to verify that, make sure she's represented.
got it. So that will be read into the record for this meeting. Are you requesting an amendment to the previous minutes for that?
We could, unless we want to just incorporate that into this meeting, I suppose that's fine too.
Okay. Were there any additional amendments to the minutes? All right, seeing none, and no objection to the amendment that was proposed, we'll consider that amendment to the minutes adopted. And do we need to go ahead and table the approval of the minutes to? Or I suppose we
Yeah, then you call for a vote.
got to approve them as amended. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please raise your placards. All right, that is a majority. The minutes are approved as amended. All right. So we'll move on to agenda item number 4, City of Tempe staff, you have a report.
Thank you, Chair Salais and the commission members. We have a very brief presentation for you. We actually have sent you documentation. So basically, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update that we've heard a lot from the public after the June 6th meeting. And then we've been to many different meetings. Yesterday, for example, there were almost 100 people in attendance. We went to different neighborhoods, we listened from them, and we began to make all the changes, and we've sent that to you in terms of the map and also in terms of the list of the things. And the schedule today that goes all the way to the council adoption is something that was set right from the beginning because of the need to comply with the Arizona statute that the adoption be done within the update be ratified within 10 years of the last ratification, which was in May 2014. So May 2024 is the last time, I think it's the 10th. That actually makes it 10 years that needs to be ratified. And then we work from the March 12, 2024 date for the election because it's a general election and that saves everyone money. It's much more efficient, 1 to 2 months away. So we work backward from the March 12, 2024 date, and there is like 180 days gap requirement between the adoption by the council and the ratification vote election because of the notices that needs to be given according to the county. So that's what brought us to the August 24th council election time. And then obviously we wanted to have a lot more time in between. And that's why we're planning to go to the DRC next week. And there's a 1 month gap again for people to look at the revised draft. The next hearing on the 27th is only introduction. So the public comments and all of that is completely possible. And then so what we've done since we begin to hear back from the people is the initial 95% of the concern that people had was actually on the map and the density. Some other changes in the text that we've seen is sometimes stylistic, sometimes strengthening a few things, adding a few things, which we continue to do in real time. We get comments from many people, including commission members and also from the public in terms of the language. Like, for example, today even we got about historic preservation. We've been getting language on density and ADA and services and all of that has been continuing updated. So the May 5th draft that you have is together with today, any decision that we want to make is together with all the changes that we have spoken, and we've given you a list of all the changes. And the map is what the majority of the concerns were. The map is something we've been distributing, and we also sent it to you in advance. And then we've also been talking to the public on that one. We have scaled back. The majority of the concerns were about density. And obviously we are an urban city, so there was some density. Even 2040 has quite a bit of density, completely underutilized. The market only goes where there's a particular market and demand. So based on that, if a document that you have, you can feel very comfortable that the map was the main thing and it's amended and you have taken a look at the map. And the draft is something that we continue to make changes. And there's going to be another 2 months for people to continue to give comments, and then we take input and changes all the way to the adoption date. The other thing that I also wanted to speak about is the process. So community working group is an advisory body. They have given us guidance and advice on how to kind of go through it. Even the map initially, we presented all the 3 scenarios that we have put in the survey. And because of sustainability and other concerns and elements, we went with the more stronger density scenario. But as we begin to hear back specific points, we've scaled it back. It's almost like, you'll see it, it's almost like 2049 now, almost, except in a few areas where there needs to be an opportunity to develop so that more housing units and few other. So that's one thing. So this is an advisory body. Basically, we'll ask you to move it forward to the DRC. DRC is a recommending body. Even DRC is not the decision-making body, but they look at the citywide perspective of general plan and other things that if they decide, they will recommend it to the council. And then between the DRC and council also, there's a month again before the council makes a decision. And again, all of these are public processes, and council is the final adopting and decision-making body. So I just wanted to clarify that the role of the community working group is advisory, the role of the development review commission is recommending, and the role of the council is the higher decision. So with that, we will just go with very quickly on a few things that some of you may not have seen, and probably there are a couple of people in the public also which are new. So we continue to get all these feedbacks. This will continue all the way through the adoption. And the public input is taken very seriously by the staff. So that's what we work. Sometimes there's a miscommunication that, oh, okay, you're putting some density without asking us, it is impacting us. We try to do a professional work of doing the right thing by listening to everyone. And if we miss it, we hear you and we change it. So it's being changed in the real time. And we'll continue to do that. You've seen it before, even the process, sometimes it is lost on people. The process, the priority that put in the plan was also based on, meetings and public input and a balanced perspective of what we've heard from a number of people and a number of stakeholders. And this, we've gone through all of this. Even the language of the plan is based on 2040, based on all the input that we got from the community and community working group and the technical advisory group, and any update that the city itself has, because in the last 8-9 years, so many plans have been updated. It has to reflect here, like the transportation master plan, affordable housing strategy, climate action plan, forestry master plan. A lot of things have happened. And also, this is only one of the plans that's in the high level. Many plans will follow, because sometimes we hear there's a communication gap and sometimes we don't explain it very well. there are many concerns people have on affordable housing, on water resources, on transportation, bike path, forestry, and so on. We just put them in the very high level objective and goals here. They will all be followed through. The fact that we put in the general plan will allow us to continue to develop that into a master plan or much more detailed plan, even historic preservation plan. It was based on the general plan before there was a historic preservation plan, we do character area plan. So a lot of the details through a public process will continue to work. And we are very thankful to the community working group, as we've always repeat, same thing with the technical advisory group. And the draft plan, again, the 7 chapters, I have shown this to you many times. You have the book in front of you. It's a large document because by definition, the general plan has to cover so many elements. The state statute requires you to cover at least 20 of those mandated elements. And we value certain things that would have 6 additional elements. So even if one element is just a couple pages, it becomes a very long document. And we also try to provide the data and analysis on the back for people to look at the background information. It's kind of, we try to make it very easy to read. We kind of, Jacob has some, I think, artistic and graphic talents there, and you see most of the pictures are mine, maybe 90%, but a lot of us do pictures. And we put, made it much more readable, easy to understand, continually paced so that you can refer to it very well. And also the organization of the plan, the preamble, the goal, objective, strategy are kind of very well articulated that we can take a look and understand what they're trying to do. So since the June 6th meeting, there is a list that I'm not going to read, but I sent it to you and even the public knows about it because this presentation is online since last couple of days. So people can take a look at some of the language changes that we've made, anything that we've heard. We've been continually making changes on the language. And lots of things, Central Tempe growth area, for example, is gone, right? And even the historic preservation, there was a proposal to talk about a potential heritage, downtown heritage area or historic core. That's something that we're working on the language with the people from historic Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation, and also people who are interested to talk to us on that one. So all of these things are continually being worked. The language is being tackled. All of this is in the making right now. All of this will be published on the 20th for the Development Review Commission, and everyone will have a chance to look at it. But right now, if you have the May 5th draft, and if you see what we've been talking, that's the package that you have. Okay. And the most important thing is the revision to the map. That's what the majority of the concern was, a map. And sometimes it was a communication gap. Sometimes in the beginning, the problem, then it became a straw man for a long time. So there was some density proposals in some areas because we combined the 2 maps. We combined the density and the land use map. So there was a little bit of sometimes a little bit of confusion. And then because there is a growth projection all the way to 2050, we wanted to provide good location for some of that density to continue to go. Once again, the 2040 general plan has a lot of density and land use that has hardly been utilized except in a few locations. So, sometimes people worry, hey, you're putting a lot of density. It's already there just because that's the way that Tempe has been forward thinking since, last 20, 30 years to accommodate a little bit. And this is not inviting growth. Again, I wanted to repeat, this is basically trying to do a good management so that there's a good quality of life, good transportation, good walkability, and even affordable housing with the plan. That's the only thing that the general plan in that level tries to do by locating the different levels of density and different types of land use and different locations. There's a whole list of things that Jacob will very quickly go over the map, the changes that we made, and the document that you have in front of you. There are 3 documents. One is the general plan 2040. There are 2 maps. One shows the land use and one shows the residential density. Sometimes it's hard to read because you got to read both. And for the sake of efficiency, now we have combined it. There's just one map. It's very easy to read, easy to amend, easy to understand. So you'll see a map that you can compare on what is in 2040. And for the 2050, there are 2 maps that we have shown. One shows a crosshatch and where the changes are and what changes are. And the other one is if you take the crosshatch, how it will look like going forward. So you have the map that becomes part of the document. So you basically have everything that you need to see and make a decision on. Because some people sometimes they get confused, hey, do they have a complete document to make a decision on? Yes, we have provided you the information that we have. Even if we transcribe everything in their 380-page document, it's kind of hard to read anyway. It's much easier to understand. You have that, the draft plan, the last almost a month and a half. With the changes that were made, you can easily picturize how the final document is going to look like. I'm not going to read all of that, but Jacob is going to go very quickly on what were the changes, how we listen to people, how we scale back the densities, and many times when it was like commercial area in the 2040 plan, commercial land use, it is been placed there. There are some places I think a little more density actually helps to get the housing and apartments. And unless you allow that kind of density, it's hard to get a low cost type of units. So that's one of the things. And the other thing that we've done that I think you will also emphasize and show you the exact location. This is the first time that we really added a lot of cultural resource area because people are concerned about protection of their neighborhood. So the cultural resource area have been added almost, I think, 600 acres or something like that. And it is something that is supported all the way through, and people actually support and vote, and the council adopts. They will have a protection for a long time from anything going on in their property. So with that, Jacob, you can quickly tell them what we've done.
Thank
I know you've been previously working on it.
Yeah, so I'll just go over this really briefly. This is just as a reminder about what land use is and how it's different from zoning. So land use in the general plan is a prediction looking out into the future of what land use is, what kind of density we might expect to see on certain properties. So it's important to get the distinction between that and zoning, which is current on the ground right now, what your rights are on the property. So the general plan is limited to use and density, whereas zoning has standards such as parking, building heights, open space requirements. So things like that aren't handled at this level, they're managed through zoning. These are the categories. I'm not going to go through them, but just know that this is a result of us combining those land use and residential density maps from the previous general plan. So the resulting is kind of 5 residential categories, 5 mixed use categories, and then our industrial, commercial, civic, educational, open space, and recreational categories. So this is a look at the amended map, which you have all been given, and there's copies of it up in the front on the table. And if everybody picked them all up, that'd be better. So if you can have a look and follow along with me, I'm going to go over some of the changes that we've made since the May 5th draft. So starting up in the top of Tempe, one thing that has been added as an increased density is at the southwest corner of the county island, right at the northeast corner of Scottsdale Road and the 202. Being that the county island is a place that most people would agree is due for some redevelopment, this is a place that we felt that increasing in density is more appropriate, and we've heard some feedback that that is a place that many people feel is appropriate to accommodate more density. Another change is over at the former Tempe Entertainment District site, where we have reverted the map back to showing commercial designation as it was in the 2040 plan. Another change is in the Maple Ash neighborhood at the corner of University and Mill. In the 2040 plan, there was a land use of mixed use and a density of cultural resource. These things are kind of at odds with each other. So when we combine these categories, we had initially chose to go with mixed use as the designation, mixed use moderate with 45 dwelling units per acre. We had a meeting with downtown neighborhoods in the west side. And it was very obvious that many neighbors in that area felt that that wasn't appropriate. So what we've done is instead of going with the mixed use as a land use, we've gone with the cultural resource, which was historically the density category in our old general plan there. We've also added areas of the Wilson Art and Garden neighborhood and
Can I
Mitchell
ask you
Park.
about that maple ash on the map? It has the horizontal.
Yes,
Slanted lines.
yes. So that's,
They propose density changes from general 2040 plan. What were those?
yeah, I'll explain and since this is a commission meeting, we'll refrain from doing comment period until we have the public
Okay.
comment, but I'll respond to that just because it's a clarification. So there's slash lines that's showing that it's depicting a land use change, because in the 2040 plan, the land use for those properties was mixed use. So we're removing them from mixed use and instead going with cultural resource. Yeah, in the 2040 plan, it had both. in this plan, it cannot. So we had to pick one or the other. We were going with cultural resource. So then moving south, along Broadway, there were several areas such as the southwest corner of Dorsey and Broadway and the southwest corner of Broadway and the 101 that were proposed as mixed use moderate up to 45 units per acre. We've reverted those areas back to their designations in the 2040 plan, which were commercial and multifamily up to 25 units per acre. And then looking over here at the areas of Broadmoor and Brentwood Cavalier, we've added the Broadmoor neighborhood and the Brentwood Cavalier in their entirety to the cultural resource designation. It's an effort to protect the neighborhood from any upzoning that might have been wanted to occur in the future. So that's an area that we heard a lot of concern from residents about potential development along Southern in the future, and this is a way to protect that from coming into the neighborhood. Another major change is along Southern Avenue from the railroads to the 101. In the May 5th draft, we had proposed mixed use moderate up to 45 units per acre along the whole corridor. This was something that a lot of residents and a lot of neighborhoods along Southern voiced concern for. So we're proposing to revert that back in our proposal of projected land use to what it was in the 2040 plan. So that's a combination of commercial land uses and multifamily up to 25 units per acre. Moving south along Baseline at the intersections of Rural and at the intersection of McClintock. This is another place where the May 5th draft had shown mixed use moderate up to 45 units per acre. These areas have also been reverted back to 2040 where they were commercial and multifamily 25 units per acre. Same goes for the intersection of Rural and Guadalupe. Mixed use moderate in our May 5th proposal, now proposing as commercial. Another change is down at Elliott and Priest. This was an area where we had previously identified some mixed use high, which would have been up to 65 units per acre. In discussing that particular area with residents, we felt that it would be more appropriate to limit that at a 45 unit per acre mixed use designation. I don't think I missed any. Did I miss any, Ambika?
No, I think you cited all the important things. There's a lot of detail.
Yes.
So thanks, Jacob. I'll just add just a couple of things. We also get emails from the public in support of the plan, but they are not in the comment card. So we're not kind of speaking on that, but we're just letting you know that the bike groups and many of the residents think that the way that the plan is kind of being organized actually guides people and it's really helpful. The other thing that I wanted to add is sometimes if you do a plan like this with the guiding developers and residents and other people in this particular location, it becomes much more predictable and easy. Otherwise, then the market forces can go any place and then they can try to amend. And what we're trying to do is give a backup list resistance in some locations, and majority of it is just like in 2014, as you explained. And a lot of that density is in the downtown area and along the Apache corridor. And those are kind of guided and it's a little simple. That's why people come. Other places where we don't want those kind of development to go, it's very limited. And so guiding with the plan is always very important. If you just leave it all open, people will just go wherever and nothing gets protected. So with that, back to you, Chair.
All right, so that concludes agenda item 4. So we'll move on to the public comment. I'm going to go ahead and start with reading in to the record the comments we've received on comment cards, beginning with Jennifer Warner from the previous meeting. All right, please do not advance the current draft of the 2050 general plan for approval.
Chair, do you wish that people hear you speak first and then you read?
Would that be preferable?
I think that's
Okay.
usually because people are already here in person, so.
Not a problem. We can do that. All right, this way you can leave instead of listening to all the comments. Right? So let's go ahead and open up for public comment. We are going to be limited to 3 minutes for each commenter. Do we have someone keeping time?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect. And can we pull up the participants on the chat as well, just so I can make sure that I'm alternating between folks who are in the building and folks who are online as their hands are raised. So if you are on the Zoom call and you wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand at this time. For everyone who's in the building who wishes to make a comment, I have actually just 2 comment cards here. Were there any others that we missed, or is it just 2? Just the 2, okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the folks who are in the building. Karen Morrissey,
That's me. What do you want me to say?
if you could come up to the front, this way the folks online can see and hear you a little better.
Okay, thank you. My name is Karen Morrissey. I've lived here for 40 years. Bought my house 30 years ago. I live on 917 Roosevelt Street. So I'm the president of our neighborhood. So that's Wilson, Roosevelt, Farmer, University, and 13th Street. I talk to everybody all the time on dogs when you walk around. I don't recognize any of your faces. I'm a little bit upset that we were not included on any of these plans, especially when you have a big stripe of changes down Farmer. I don't know, I don't think any of you live in 85281 and understand some of the issues that you're putting at us, but I do see some downzoning in South Tempe. So I hope you consider this, that I can only speak for myself and my neighborhood. We don't want this density. I know it's a big business. I know you want to shove a lot of people into small areas, but the problem is you got to have a couple neighborhoods. You need some breathing room. You got to pressure, you got to have alleviation of pressure. So I hope you consider that. Thank you. Let me know if I'm wrong. If you guys don't, if you do live in 85281, love to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. All right, online we have, there was a hand up. Joan, I think it was Westlake.
I think she's giving us a thumbs up. Joan, you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. I live in the Brentwood Cavalier neighborhood. And first of all, I want to say it really is heartening to hear that from the last meeting that you've done some changes that we requested, you know, including us in the cultural area. And one of my concerns is Danielle Plaza. I mean, I'm sure you've heard from all the input that ASU, downtown is great for ASU, downtown is great for the tourists, but the neighbors who have lived here for a long time, it's not for us. And we were really hopeful that the Danielle Plaza, we're not against residential, but at the level, it's not moderate. 45 per acre is a lot. And what we were hoping for is that we could have an area where, yes, there's residential, maybe some artists work and live type of things. How about giving some nice tax incentives to local businesses, not just these big corporations, not just these big developers. This is an area that could really feed our soul. And I mean, we lost our park at on the northeast corner of Rural and Southern. That was a park for our neighborhood, and that was taken from us that was when the senior Mitchell was mayor, and in order for Smiths to buy it and build an education building. So we lost that park. We were just hoping for something. And I think Danielle Plaza, a little less density and a lot more cultural and really supporting local artists and local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. We'll go on to Shannon Dutton. If you could come up to the front, so this thing right here is a camera. It's just to make sure the folks online can see it. Just anywhere close to the front row. That's good. Yeah, that should work.
The little owl will be listening to you. Yeah.
Currently, the area that I live in is traditional single family up to 9. And I don't understand why the dates of those homes being built are older than Cavalier Hills, but they're now designated cultural resource.
And what's the crossroads? Sorry, where?
Scottsdale Road, between Scottsdale Road and College,
Okay,
happens to be like Fillmore area.
okay.
And want to know how that gets changed, so it's cultural also. For the time that those houses were built, and Cavalier Hills, I believe ours were even built before that, so how do we get that fixed onto this situation?
Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone else online? Looks like we have a hand up from Jack Ketchum. Jack, floor yours. Jack, can you hear us? All right, well, we get that figured out. We'll go ahead and move on to Lauren Kuby.
You hear me now?
Oh, wait, we got Jack. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Wrong microphone. Yeah, my name is Jack Ketchum. I just wanted to give a quick comment. I was born and raised in Phoenix. I've lived in Tempe in the 85281 zip code for about 9 years now, and I was able to purchase my first home 2 years ago, but like only just. I just want to say that I strongly support the proposed 2050 general plan here, and I'm sad to see some of these mixed use designations go away and revert back to commercial. So just wanted to signal my support for this plan.
Thank you for your comments. All right, we'll go ahead and go to Lauren Kuby.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for serving. I know you worked long and tedious hours, and you started at 27 and now you're a tribe of 17. And so I appreciate you sticking with it. And I also want to say for the peanut gallery, if everyone could speak up, it would be appreciated back there. And I wanted to reiterate what Joan Westlake was saying. She's from Brentwood Cavalier, and I'm in that same neighborhood. And I'm concerned about Denell Plaza as well. We're looking at a 90% increase in density at Denell Plaza. I know one of the considerations there is a 12-story building. You don't have affordable housing when you have 12 stories. You don't have affordable housing when you have over 6 stories, because the method of construction, differs. It becomes steel frame construction. So I'm concerned about that, about a 90% increase. And I wanted to urge that you consider a mixed use low to moderate category, which would be 25 DUs per acre. I think that would be suitable for Denell Plaza, and perhaps, looking at some other areas. I'm not sure you should throw the baby out with the bathwater and then just and always have commercial in some of these intersections, because I think that horizontal density can really lead to community building and to a more sustainable city. But I really urge you to look at the mixed use low to moderate category to create that category. It's not currently there. I'm especially thinking of Denell Plaza because I know my neighborhood is deeply concerned about Denell Plaza and what might happen. And I think it's going to become a flashpoint in the city in the next year. I also wanted to talk about engagement, and Miguel, where are you? Yes. I mean, the staff has done an amazing job with reaching out, but there comes a point in time where you can't just reach out and just have neighborhood meetings or community meetings and expect you're going to get a really robust understanding of where the public is on this. And I've attended a number of these meetings, and it's hard not to notice. And I'm in this category of someone retired, white, upper class, privileged. We see an abundance of people in that category. And I'm a little concerned that we're not really embracing the majority renter category that lives in the city. And I urge us to look at what the climate action plan managers did. They found, they heard from the community. We don't want to talk to you, city staff. No offense to MBK here, you're wonderful, but we want to talk with a trusted community group that we work with, and we want to give you our feedback that way. And so the Climate Action Plan, the Office of Resiliency and Sustainability, they hired Unlimited Potential. There's other groups that do this, a nonprofit group that went into the communities and really brought back a more robust understanding than what we typically would get with your regular community engagement. And I think that's very important because I know, also on this group, I don't think there's anybody from Northwest Tempe represented. I could be wrong. I think it's very important that we look at those most marginalized in our community and bring their voices to the fore. And I don't feel that we've done that yet. And I'm a little concerned there's going to be a vote here and a major vote at DRC. I think you have to look at a more robust process where you go to people where they are. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Do we have anybody else online? All right, seeing no one else online, we've gone through the request to speak cards here. I will begin reading the comments from the previous meeting and then the comments for this meeting into the record, starting with Jennifer Warner. Please do not advance the current draft of the 2050 general plan for approval. I do not believe that the majority of citizens are aware of exactly what is being proposed. The maps that have been provided in the various online surveys are ridiculously difficult to view, let alone understand, and they are trying to what they are trying to convey. Also, much of the text included in the surveys and the plan itself are difficult to make sense of. I am sure that if every citizen knew exactly what it means to change zoning from commercial to mixed use, most would be greatly opposed to this kind of change in all of the proposed areas. There is a reason why people choose to live south of downtown Tempe. It is because we don't want to live in neighborhoods surrounded by high rises, mainly consisting of luxury apartments and condos that most cannot afford. I understand that the development is inevitable, but we need to be far more responsible about how it is done. Lastly, in light of the recent election results, excuse me, for the proposed arena project, the general plan seems particularly careless and not at all in line with the majority of what citizens want. Please take the additional time that is needed to engage with all neighborhoods who will be greatly affected by this proposed plan. All right, so that finishes the remaining comments from the previous meeting. We'll then move on to the comments for this meeting, with the first one being from Jean Greaves. Tempe is getting too dense. Single-family areas are turning into parking lots with lax enforcement of the number of people who can live in a house. Also, older people cannot take public transport in the summer heat, so more provisions for parking cars need to be added near businesses in places like the Tempe Center for the Arts. All right. We have two additional cards to speak on this topic. I'm going to allow these two through it once I finish reading through the comments. If there's anybody else who wants to speak on it, now would be the time to submit a card, because we won't be taking any additional speakers after I've concluded reading these comments. All right. So the next one is Doris Marie Provine. I am concerned that the emphasis in this plan is on accommodating growth rather than enhancing the quality of life of folks already living here. This is not a NIMBY position. There are areas of Tempe that can be developed in ways that provide new multiple family housing and also improve the lives of residents on single family lots. The city needs to find ways to create clusters of small businesses and apartments that complement existing single family areas. This kind of development does not appear to attract the kind of investors that the city has been dealing with. So it seems as if the city is bending over backwards to make itself welcoming towards what they do want to build: sterile, dense, high-end housing. Let's put Tempe's quality of life first and let the developers find ways to respect and promote it. All right, the next comment is from Carolyn Roberts Raper. Their current plan 2040 does not call for this incredible amount of density. We are dense enough now, and this is causing congestion and negatively impacting the quality of life in the 85281 and 85282 zip codes. What is the motivation for the purposes changes in the 2040 plan? The next comment is from, I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name, so just assume that moving forward. Mara Funky comment reads, I am not opposed to mixed use and high density. What I am opposed to is the lack of affordable housing. These new developments are essentially luxury residents and will do nothing to solve our local housing crisis. My next comment is from Diane Melrose. Please plant more trees, not palm trees. Consider the idea of an urban forest. Urban forestry increases our quality of life by promoting mental well-being and encouraging physical activity. They reduce air pollution, cool temperatures in the summer, and protect biodiversity. Urban property values increase with more trees, and neighborhoods benefit from the increased shade and beauty. The next comment is from Dylan Severns. I do not support the new Tempe plan. This is not what our neighborhood needs. The next comment is from Tony Wright. Please keep the current 2040 land use map in place. The 2050 general plan is a disaster due to its increased density possibilities and is exactly what we do not want. The city is supposed to protect the residents from egregious developers, and the 2050 general plan will open up much of the city to just these types of developers. Please also keep Danelle Plaza at neighborhood scale density, as is reflected in the 2040 plan. The next comment is from Jeff Warner. I really hope that you will not advance the 2050 general plan for approval. I have lived in Tempe for 6 years and have seen the amount of development downtown and don't think we should continue south into the neighborhoods. The traffic is already a nightmare, especially when ASU is in session, so creating more gridlock is a big problem for me. Also, please do not allow for increased density at Danelle Plaza. The intersection of Mill Avenue and Southern is already consistently busy. Please keep the current 2040 land use map in place. The next comment is from Justin Stewart. I would highly recommend that at this time, the draft plan is not recommended to move to the DRC. I believe that the public deserves to see a complete plan and adjustments made after all of the rounds of discussion this week. And, excuse me, almost maybe another input period electronically before this goes to the DRC. I know staff have said that the plan will change post DRC, but I truly believe with all of the input given in the past couple of weeks that staff needs adequate time to make changes from the feedback and then highlight what those changes were and are before going to the DRC. Once in the hands of the DRC, this plan will have very minor adjustments with very little public input. The public deserves to see what changes were made and think about those changes and respond to those changes. There were literally meetings this week gathering feedback, and there is no way that staff can digest and make the appropriate changes for the public to review in such a short time span. And I think that staff and the public need as much time as possible to make the correct adjustments before even thinking moving this to the DRC. A few business days does not do that. The plan in its current form will not pass a public vote, as we can see from the online forum, and the public deserves to see and comment on changes post this latest round of feedback sessions. Please vote no on sending this plan to the DRC. The next comment is from Suzanne White. I believe the city should adhere to the current general plan, maintaining the current zoning, enforcing existing limits on height and density along main arterials and intersections. Please do not advance the 2050 general plan. The next comment is from Merrill Darcy. Another expedited attempt to placate developers and State University, which is no doubt growing out of Tempe. This plan is only for more renters, displacing property owners who cannot purchase or maintain their homes, forcing them to move outside the city. Tempe is landlocked and has just about reached critical mass. It's not more housing, but smart housing. It's not more growth, but smart growth. And this plan is neither. It is for more height and density, which is planned for future renters. A community of renters is an expense to the citizens, with more first responder service calls, more crime, and lack of pride. Once this mindset is attained, the city's downfall begins, and this is how it starts. Most informed citizens will be voting no for Tempe 2050. The next comment is from Roberta Neal Miller. I strongly urge the commission to delay the vote referring the 2050 general plan draft to the Development Review Commission, DRC, and City Council tonight. Our community deserves time to review and analyze a comprehensive draft plan in its entirety. I recognize that the city staff has been extremely busy amending the general plan so as to address community input prior to tonight's meeting. However, the city placed itself in this position by failing to adequately and effectively engage the community until very recently, especially the neighborhoods affected by the changes in development densities. Since the last commission meeting 10 days ago, the staff has been releasing amendments to the draft plan in dribs and drabs to accommodate citizen input and concerns. We certainly appreciate the staff's effort, but it is unrealistic and unprofessional for staff to recommend referring this very important document, which is at best a work in progress, forward along the next step to acceptance. Next step to acceptance at the DRC and City Council. Doesn't the community deserve time to read, analyze, and comment on the proposed draft plan in its entirety? A plan which will have consequential impact on our communities going forward in years to come. Further, I suggest the commission members in their exercise of due diligence cannot realistically expect to understand and analyze this very dense, complicated document at this juncture, and should also take more time to read and understand it in its entirety. I also recognize that staff is working with a time deadline to refer the proposed 2050 general plan to the ballot in March 2024. However, I suggest that the community should not have to suffer the consequences for the city's failure to effectively communicate and engage with the community until very recently. Therefore, I ask the commission to delay any vote or consideration of the proposed draft plan until a final 2050 general plan draft has been released. The next comment is from Thomas Zaworski. I would have provided my comments in person, but I am unable to attend the meeting. I am therefore writing as a longtime Tempe resident to urge the commission to postpone a decision to send the 2050 general plan draft to the Development Review Commission and City Council. My request is based on simple logic and fairness. The final draft of the general plan is yet to be completed, let alone sent to Tempe residents for their consideration and input. How can the commission make such a recommendation without having reviewed and considered the final documents? To do so at this juncture would further undermine the community's faith in our city government. Thank you. Excuse me. All right, so we have a comment from Jennifer Warner. Please do not advance the 2050 general plan for approval. Even with the adjustments, it allows for far too much density and overdevelopment that will negatively affect our quality of life in Tempe. I do not think the majority of citizens know what is being proposed despite the current efforts the city has been touting. We do not need more high rises nor more traffic on our already congested streets. I think what most Tempe residents want to see is more of is outdoor green spaces like parks and community gardens, not more tall buildings. I also urge you to consider designating Denal Plaza as a culture hub and protect it from demolition and overdevelopment. The plaza has such a rich history and cultural significance. I believe that the current 2040 land use map should be kept in place. The next comment, I don't know that we'll, I think we might go over the 3 minutes on this one. The next comment is from Shireen Lerner. I served on the technical advisory group as a representative for the Parks and Recreation Board. Thank you to staff for the hard work in preparing the document. I have concerns which I have previously expressed at the meetings and which focus on the emphasis on growth, negative impacts on infrastructure and neighborhoods, and strong potential to negatively affect archaeological sites and historic properties in Tempe. The 2050 plan leans very heavily into dimensions of growth and not enough into localized guidance regarding Tempe's neighborhoods, community culture, and heritage. This section on historical preservation is not strong enough to provide protection to our rapidly dwindling historic properties and neighborhoods. The Urban Core Master Plan, which was not approved, included some strong recommendations for preserving historic places in Tempe. I ask that you go back to that document and include many of those components. Additionally, please add the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation to the list of groups to consult. You mentioned the Historic Preservation Commission, but not the foundation. Specifically, please include efforts to maintain the historic integrity of the downtown historic core through proper restoration and renovation methods, and add tax incentives to property owners and consider historic preservation and viewshed easements and other historic property protections to maintain historic properties. We need to ensure that new construction supports the integrity of the downtown historic core and not to be so quick to grant variances that will ultimately detract from the sense of place and character of the streetscape and properties. Formal municipal guidance and ordinances should be in place to support historic preservation goals. With regard to historic preservation, in 1980, the historic buildings in downtown Tempe were collectively listed on the National Register of Historic Places as a multiple resource area, now known as a multiple property submission area. In any planning of the downtown should carefully consider impacts on the historic character of the designated properties. Beyond the historic core, Tempe has an increase in properties eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, NRHP, that should be evaluated. One criteria for eligibility is when a property is 50 years old. Less than 1% of Tempe's buildings were constructed prior to 1949. This is part of our history, and we should be able to find a way to preserve them. 6% of our buildings were constructed between 1950 and 1959, and 17% of our buildings constructed between 1960 and 1969. This is part of Tempe's growth pattern. These neighborhoods are character areas, and impacts on them should be considered. Towards the beginning of our discussion on TAG, the question was raised as to why we were so focused on maximizing growth rather than enhancing what we have. It is important to ensure that we have the right infrastructure to support increased population. We need enough open space and have to be able to preserve the timing. Yep. All right. The next comment is from Virginia R. Sylvester. I appreciate the commission delayed their original vote and have made some changes to the 2050 plan in relation to land use. I live in Brentwood Cavalier, the Brentwood Cavalier area of the Alameda area. I still have concerns over traffic congestion and water sustainability if some of the land in the Alameda area is allowed to increase from 25 dwelling units per acre to 45 dwelling units per acre. In addition, I look at Daniel Plaza. I note that it will be allowed up to 45 dwelling units per acre. I think that is too high, but if allowed to go through, a large percentage of apartments need to be set aside for the artist/music community at a reasonable price in order to provide for expanded arts and culture activity around Daniel Plaza in conjunction with development of the Maker area. All right, that concludes the written comments. We will now, do we have any additional forms come through? No? All right, we'll now move on to the remaining two public comments. Gail Shanks, if you could come up to the front, please. Right there's good. Perfect. Anywhere up here generally.
Thank you all. I know this is a tough job and you've just heard like a ton of people saying that they're not excited about this new plan. But you've worked your hearts out putting together this plan, as has Dika, Jacob, and everyone else who's been working at the city doing this. And we're incredibly appreciative as residents. I want us to be on the same side. I think that it's really important that we all are looking at the quality of life issues. All of you, city officials, and especially our city council. Because a lot of times what happens is we look at these city plans, we change it, and then at the last minute, there's a variance and the developers come in and they convince the city council or the planning department or whoever it is that, yeah, that's what they said. Yep, that's what it looks like. Yep, that's what it says in that plan. But guess what? We want to change it and then suddenly it all changes. So I think what I would love is if there was some way that we could just slow this all down. We all want Tempe to grow in a healthy way. But it doesn't have to grow in leaps and bounds. You know, if we create more jobs, we don't necessarily have to create a house for every job that we have. And if we have too many jobs and not enough houses, maybe we need to have less jobs in Tempe. I'd also like us to think about how we relate to our community outside of the borders of Tempe. So I'm thinking about how Phoenix decides where they're going to build and what they're going to build and how it gets pushed to us if they don't want to do it. What does Scottsdale decide they want to do? If we don't have a homeless shelter and we want to press our homeless to the Phoenix area and they don't have room, how does that impact us? All I want us to do, and all I want to do as a citizen of this community, is make this a sustainable, livable, wonderful place for everyone from every socioeconomic stratus that we have, and move us to a place where we have time, energy, and the space to make good decisions. And it just worries me that we are asking people, these poor guys from the city, you know, they have a meeting 2 days ago and they're changing it on the map. And then we don't have time to look at it. Why don't we? Why can't we, like I said this in another meeting, take 3 deep breaths? Why can't we say, we just need time to look at this and analyze it and think about it? We don't have to be on this time frame. And if passing it on to the DRC is going to just push this, you know, into the speed zone, then I think we should stop, and you should stop, and you can stop. And we are asking you to do that, as did a zillion of those people that you just read the notes from. So that's really what I think we should do here tonight. Thanks so
Thank you
much.
for your comments. All right. I apologize, Paul, is it Handel? Hubble, okay, Paul Hubble.
Hi. I'm Paul Hubble and lived in Tempe for 30 years. And I have an engineering and system analysis background. I came in on this late, but not because of the city publicizing this. I just wasn't paying attention. But once I found out what was happening with the draft on May 5th, I decided to be responsible and treat it as a technical document, which I reviewed, edited, and gave recommendations for changes to long-suffering things out there. Jacob is more suffering than. Anyway, I gave him 47 pages of changes so far. And what I'm trying to do is help them to get a document that will survive the election in March. As it was when I first looked at it, it really had no chance of getting through. I think we've made progress, but there still is a lot to do. Sorry. If I were in the group here at this point, I have to say I would vote no, but I'm not in the group. It's your decision. I leave it to you. You decide what it is. And I have one sample of changes that I requested from Anika. If you like, I'll let you have it. You can pass it around. It's just asking for one more category of density. And sorry to get on to that. That's it. There's really a lot to do, and I would like to see the 2050 plan be approved in March. But if not, we're going to be left with the 2050. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, so that concludes the public comment portion. The next item on the agenda is a recommendation on vote to advance the draft. Before we proceed to that, I want to emphasize that this body is an advisory body, so we don't have any authority to directly alter the course of the plan. We offer advice to the city while this plan is being constructed. And Bika, I don't know if you have any comment to that effect, because at this point, I think our purpose has been served in terms of advising.
Yes, Chair, that's exactly right.
Okay, so the purpose of this body has been resolved, or has been reached. We've reached the conclusion of what we do. There are other routes throughout this process beyond the community working group where further comment could be provided and additional change could be made all the way up until it's ready to go to the ballot. And I just want to emphasize that before we move on to this next agenda item.
Can we get discussion about what was discussed with public comments and questions to Jacob on what he presented with his updated maps at this point, or will that be an opportunity later?
It's your pleasure, Chair.
I was definitely expecting to have a conversation and respond to comments. I have my own concerns about the plan too, and some of the comments that were heard today.
Can you
Okay.
speak louder, please? Yeah, I can hear you
Make a
down here.
motion and discuss, right?
I can make a motion for this and then we can discuss, have more of the input amongst the commissioners
So
to discuss it.
That is germane, but we can, it would be within the context of the motion that is being made. Is that acceptable to the community working group generally?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Okay, so Myrna,
So I can make a motion for that. I make a motion that the draft Tempe tomorrow general plan 2050 that was dated May 5th of 2023, which is the draft that we have been reviewing, with the additional changes that have been made to address community comments and inputs. I move that we move forward to the Development Review Commission or the DRC for the recommendations and the approval comment process. So at this point, I would recommend to open for some comment for the commissioner.
if there's any opposition, we move into discussion. Is anyone opposed?
Yes. Opposed,
yes. Can all who are opposed to moving to a vote say aye? All right, all in favor of moving to a vote? All right, so we will go ahead and open discussion on this motion.
Did we get the lines too?
Pardon me?
I don't know if you wanted to document the lines.
Oh, you're right. That's fair. Everyone who's online, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom if you are opposed to moving to a vote. Okay, we got one, and raise your hand. Go ahead and put your hand down and then raise your hand if you wish to move to the vote. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and rerun that because I think I need to do a count now. I think we might be right down the middle. So we had 3 yes online, 1 no. Okay. All opposed to moving to a vote on the motion that was provided, please raise your placards.
Say that again? Yeah.
All opposed to moving to the vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
Oh, yeah.
6. All in favor of moving to the vote? This would be in favor of moving to vote on the referral of general plan. We got 2. All right. Okay, so the noes have it. So discussion is open on this motion. Go ahead and raise your placard if you want to be recognized, and I'll just keep my running list.
Chair, just one quick question. For our records, if we can actually do a roll call and get the name,
Certainly.
so much easier.
All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this again. So online, if you do not wish to move to the vote to refer this draft of the general plan to the DRC, which will open discussion on the motion, please raise your hand. Liliana Cardenas, Joan Westlake.
John's not a member.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Joan's not a member. Sarbaswar Praharaj. All right, so that's 2. All right, online, all in favor of moving to vote on referring the general plan to the DRC? 2. Okay. That's going to be Patrick McNamara, Catherine Schmidt.
Chair,
This
sorry,
Don-
if you don't
Don
mind asking
Ortiz.
Don Ortiz to vote, he may abstain or not, but he's a member.
Don Ortiz, are you voting yes, no, or abstaining?
You said in favor of the comments.
In favor in the comments?
In
Okay,
favor, there we go. Okay.
okay. All right. So we'll start with we'll do a roll call vote of the folks in the room. If you've already voted online, don't respond. All right. All right, Myrna Bays.
And then again, the yes vote means we will discuss or not discuss.
Yes means we don't discuss and we go to a vote. No means we open discussion.
No, no to open discussion.
Sydney Bethel Price.
I'm glad you clarified.
Who's our parliamentarian?
No, then to move to discussion.
Okay. Liliana Cardenas, voted online. Yes, she did. JP Coughlin.
No.
No. Jana Lynn Grenier.
No.
Patrick McNamara. Sure did. Robert Moore. Shane Peterlin, not here. Sarviswar Praharaj, voted online. I am abstaining. Catherine Schmidt,
She voted online.
voted online. David Sokolowski. No. Ann Till,
I don't understand the yes or no, but I would like to discuss.
so no means we discuss the motion.
Okay, no, then
Yes means we move to vote.
I got confused because I thought. it was-
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Okay.
Logan Tokos?
No.
No. All right, so we have 10 no's, 3 yeses. So discussion is open. It is currently 7:07, so we've got about less than 25 minutes remaining. So I'm going to go ahead and cap discussion for this motion at 15 minutes for the time being, and we can add to that if necessary. All right, so all who want to, pardon me? If you want to speak on the matter, go ahead and raise your placard and I'll keep a running tally of whoever's placard went up first. All right. David. Robert. Sydney. I am so sorry, JP. Can I add you? Can I add you on the end here? All right, thank you. Anyone online?
Ask them to raise their hand, to speak or put their name in the chat.
All right, okay, Jana, floor is yours.
I think it's important to listen to all the comments that we heard today, both that were written and people that joined and spoke to the group. It's apparent that this draft, that the land use piece of it is not ready to move forward. And as changes are being made, the public can't keep up with it, just to reiterate what has been said here. So I think that we need to really consider all those people who came here and who wrote in and who gave their time and said they're not ready to move forward. That's the bottom line, okay?
David?
It does concern me that we haven't seen an actual draft.
Could you speak up with the folks in the back?
I was hoping that we would get a chance to actually see a draft and actually read some of the changes as far as like affordable housing, ADUs, transit. We're not able to actually see the text. And as far as the land use, I also share some of the concerns about moving too fast. And even though I support more density, I'm concerned that renters are not being represented during this process. I was told that this would be a balance between the different interests of the community. But I can see that they removed the central Tempe growth area. They removed all of the changes on Southern Avenue. They removed the changes on Baseline Road. They expanded the cultural resource area to new neighborhoods. And the only thing that was left is the Nell Plaza. And that one property is one that we've all heard people don't want to develop. And so now this creates a situation where we're basically putting renters against people who want to preserve historic properties. That's the only property that's left in the neighborhood for us to develop based on this land use. And that's the one that has the most fierce opposition. And so I think that's a problem. I think that this really needs to be more of a balance where, I mean, so we're talking about potentially 25 units per acre on the Nell Plaza. That's, 300, 350 units over 30 years. And I really don't think that's going to be enough. And we're talking about adding 83,000 jobs over the next 30 years and potentially only 15,000 units. And so that's going to create an extreme demand that's going to cause more of a housing crisis. I think that's a very concern. And the fact that we're not actually balancing the need for more housing, that we're not balancing the need for more growth. It's one thing to protect the neighborhoods, but where are the renters going to go? You expanded the cultural resource area, but there's only one property left for renters.
Ann?
Yeah, so, yeah, I agree that like, we only got a copy of the land use yesterday and it's not in the draft, so I'd like to see an actual draft too, and I'd also like the public to be able to see it and perhaps comment on it. And there was also some things that people brought up about, adding the new a new mixed use category for 25 units, which seems like a good idea. And I have one question. Does mixed use allow homeownership? Can you have
Yes.
condos? Okay, I thought so, but
It doesn't talk about it in the city, it's basically.
yeah, it's generic. Okay. Also, let's see, I noticed that some areas that are actually commercial are noted as multifamily. And also, areas that are HOA areas, but now they're listed as multifamily 25, which seems kind of weird because they're really more single family units. Let's see, I like the idea of Denell Plaza being kind of thought of as cultural. And I also wonder why, some areas are selected as cultural resource areas, like my neighborhood's mid-century modern. So I would like some protection in my neighborhood, from zoning changes and mixing things in. Let's see, I agree, we need to consider everybody, renters, seniors. And also I wanted to note, I don't think I saw it in there, but our schools have declined in enrollment. So, obviously there's less families. So there should be something about renters and families, seniors, every category to enhance bringing them in. I like what Shireen said about historic properties. And I wanted to comment on job growth because I work in Scottsdale, or I did work in Scottsdale, and I still work for General Dynamics there, but I actually don't go into the office. In fact, now I work for Pittsfield, Massachusetts, so bringing in new jobs doesn't mean people are even going to live in Arizona. So just to point that out. Let's see. Oh, and as far as representation on the committee, I just wanted to clarify, to the public who's here, is that there was some solicitation to see if we wanted to join the 2050 committee. And I, as a resident, submitted my application or whatever it was. And then I think the council, somebody selected us all. And so we're just residents. And so we didn't control, what areas were selected, and maybe nobody even applied from the North neighborhood. Maybe that's why none of.
I did. I live in Daly Park.
Oh, you live in Daly.
Yeah, I live in 8281. I live near.
But that's not, yeah, that is in the North neighborhood, yeah, on the character area.
I grew up on Fifth and back.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't know if there's a configuration that you guys have, how you select it, because I know in other boards it says that this kind of member, that kind of member, but just maybe that's a lesson learned, I don't know. So anyways, that's all I have to say again. Yeah.
Robert?
Yeah, I want to reflect thanks to the community members that showed up today and the comment cards that were submitted. It means a lot to hear from the community. And it's pretty clear that we have to continue that process. And to double down on what David and I think Lauren said too, we have to be sure not only that we're engaging the broader community, but be sure we're representing underrepresented groups such as renters and seniors and such. And I'm not 100% sure that process is done yet. So I would agree on that point as well.
but I think, and I think, Jana mentioned this too. I think the bottom line is, I think there should be continued engagement in this process, and I think there's still work to be done. And it's our responsibility as a commission to make sure that the community is engaged, and the process is effective. And I know that we're simply an advisory, but it's our duty, as residents of Tempe, to ensure that processes like this are honored and we don't become rubber stamp commissions, like many are. And if we don't do it, then why do we expect other commissions to step up and do their jobs as opposed to simply processing what's fed to them? On the point of Denell Plaza, yeah, I hear you. Cause I'm on the side of the 25 low mixed use option. And in part, my neighborhood is spooked because we went through an RFP process that was highly questionable. Basically a very dense solution was proposed that would have pushed out the arts and cultural aspect of it. I think what we're looking for at Denell Plaza is to create a great example of what working with the community can look like for a sustainable solution that engages affordability. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, the neighborhood edge is that they're nervous because they saw some things they didn't like. So they're kind of going the opposite direction. And I think one of our speakers mentioned it too, that I think we want the neighborhoods to engage with developers, want the opportunity to be part of the process. And if we green light them, if we give away everything, if we give them guidance that this is something we want in terms of a certain density, as opposed to having a conversation about it, there's concern that will be left out of that process. And so, as we know, whether through upzoning or simply asking, developers can get upgrades, right? But I think the mentality is that neighborhoods want to be engaged in this conversation. So they're not giving it at possibly what the vision would be, but they're doing it less so that there can be a conversation. So I'm not a developer, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm kind of reflecting what I think the perception is and why they want that low mixed use designation. And to double down on that concept, I looked at Paul's new designation there too, and I would support that as well, incorporating a low mixed use option that's currently not represented in the 2050 plan for more flexibility as a mixed use designation in our neighborhoods. Again, it's mixed use I don't think it's scary. I think it's a neat opportunity, but it's how it's approached that is the real question amongst neighborhoods. And so I think that gives an opportunity to engage it more effectively. And I was going to ask, and I probably shouldn't get into the weeds right now, but I was disappointed to David's point. In the 2040 plan, you guys removed 2 mixed use designations in your updated map. So why did the neighborhood tell you? Well, why does mixed designation disappear?
So I'm assuming that you're talking on Southern Avenue.
McClintock and Southern and Roland Southern.
So a lot of the concern over the proposed mixed use along Southern was because of the 45 unit cap. So in keeping mixed use there, it would have been 45.
Yeah.
By default in the.
See, that's the problem. We're spooking people with this hyper designation of 45 when these neighborhoods want to slowly, gently, incorporate these concepts. But, this plan, this 2050 initial plan was so heavy handed and overreached so far, it spooked neighborhoods to the point where they're removing opportunities to incorporate housing. And that's very frustrating. And the data involved to develop that 2050 plan was weak and inappropriate to make those decisions to begin with. These surveys that had 14 people, recommending certain guidance and then us following that guidance. Again, it doubles down and we have some more work to do with community engagement because I'm not sure what we're seeing is a reflection of the community yet. And I think those problems with the data and the original survey data is a large part of that. And that is disappointing, and it's something we have to work on to correct. And again, it speaks to this concept of continued engagement. I want to double down on Shireen's support for the downtown historic district, or core, sorry. I think there's opportunities there. I think we are, by our character, a desert city. And I think it's a neat opportunity to connect our cultural roots with the desert and honor our view sheds and our connectivity to the desert. We have a downtown that has a desert landform associated with it, and it's a neat opportunity, unique opportunity.
I don't want to cut you off,
Nope.
but we are running down. the
Okay,
clock.
let's do it.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
All right, so before we jump over to Sydney, I just wanted to ask, real quick of, Tempe City staff. Do we have an idea of what the public involvement process looks like, should this, plan draft advance to the DRC?
Then it will go to the first introduction at DRC on the 27th of June. And then they will just hear, it will also be a public forum. And then there's 1 month between 27th and July 25th, when we continue to gather any input and hold any other meeting. Gather any other input, if we want to make any changes onto the draft. That's something that we present to the DRC on July 25th again. And then it continues to go like that. And also very quick comment that Jacob just responded, just for clarification. The commercial, when you revert back to the commercial on some of these places where people wanted, it does allow 25 minutes per of residential per acre with the use permit. So that's why if you did not like the 45, and if you wanted 45, reverting it back to the commercial one, then fine, because you would be like the 45 of those.
All right, Sydney?
I'll keep my items quick. I think everything's already been discussed, but I just want to reiterate again with the mixed use, and it's helpful to have the context that commercial can have residential up to 25 dwelling units with a conditional use permit. I think with the general plan being a guiding document at very high level, I think that all of the comments are really appreciated, but I think too, maybe it's some additional education throughout the process of staff went up there and talked about how this is a guiding document and that there's many other types of regulations that are the specific standards that are also safekeeping some of these cultural areas, historic overlays, national registries, so those types of items. So I think that having the mixed use designation of mixed use low is a really great idea moving forward, even if you can have that ability through a conditional use permit to show that we do want to encourage some type of mixed use. I think everyone thinks of vertical mixed use, and particularly downtown, and there is a great comment regarding horizontal is also a large component of thinking of. I was also surprised to see kind of the areas on Baseline and Southern get reverted back to commercial, because you think of the collective, at Baseline and Roll, you hear a lot of great things. People like that combination of a more relaxed type of lower density mixed use. And I think that's perfect for that type of area. And I'd like to see that encouraged in the future.
All right, so we have two more and then our time will be elapsed. So JP?
Yeah, just to the fellow commissioners, we spent the last year pouring through this incredible document for 2040. And a lot of the focus is on the land use, and it's very important. I just don't want to lose sight of the rest of the content of that document and the guidance that we put in there. Now we've advised the team to put in there as far as what we want the culture to look like, what we want the city to look like, what sort of amenities we want built into these areas. And I really want to thank the staff for listening, every single month, every single meeting, sometimes twice a month, to those inputs. And I think the release of the draft, as I mentioned in the last meeting, we all got to see the draft at the same time. And this was the point, right? This is the point, is to gather this input and to get everyone's perspective on these. And for better or worse, things work under deadlines. If it doesn't have a deadline, you don't always get the input. It's definitely ramped up over the past weeks as this has been released. So first, I want to thank the staff and also implore the staff as we move forward with this process, please continue that open ear, listening to those inputs and continuing to bring those into the plan. I think that there's great voices here that provide a lot of experience and value into that process. And I want to ask the commission to just consider the fact that this is a plan for 2050, right? My elementary school kids are going to be my age, well, maybe sitting at one of these tables by the time we're actually seeing this vision. And it's a living document. It not only gets updated every 10 years, it gets updated every few years with amendments as needed. And so our job is to provide that guidance and to listen to those inputs and to put progress over perfection. So that's my main thank you to the commission for all the really great experiences it's been so far, and to all the input from the public.
Logan?
I just wanted to thank you all for coming and for sharing your comments, and fellow commissioners, thank you for sharing your thoughts on this as well. It's been good for me to sit here and listen to you. It's definitely changed some of my thoughts on the plan as well. I would like to ask staff, can we add to the map under commercial that it is possible to have housing in that area? I don't think that that's intuitive to most people.
That's what I just explained. Under commercial, you can build up to.
And I just want to clarify that on in the plan before the map, when we have the descriptions of the land uses, it's explained that in commercial zoning districts, there are different allowances for residential densities with the use permit. So some of them allow 10 units per acre, some of them allow 15. And at the most, there's some commercial districts that allow 25. So it is specified in the commercial land use description that comes before the map.
That makes sense, because I thought I had heard that somewhere before, but I was looking here and got a little bit confused. And thank you all for all of your hard work, especially incorporating all of this in such a short timetable. I know that I'm sure that's been very stressful. You guys have done a good job.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and offer my comment at the end of this time. So I know, pardon me?
Can we extend this a little bit so they can talk? I feel horrible. I'll
Do we
pay
have-
money or
do
something.
we have a motion to extend discussion? Please specify for how long.
Motion 5 minutes.
A 5-minute extension? I think we might actually be over that already. Can we get maybe a 15-minute extension? A chair would entertain a moment for a 15-minute extension to discussion. For 15 minutes. All right, JP's making a motion to extend discussion for 15 minutes. Logan seconds. All opposed? Seeing none, discussion is extended for 15 minutes. So my take on this, and as the person who got to read quite a few comments about the Denell Plaza in particular. So I grew up in Tempe. I grew up actually in the Sunset neighborhood in cultural resource area off of Robert, so near 5th Street, in fact. And I've spent most of my adult life in Tempe, and I now live in Terrace Walk, south of Baseline, between off of Hardy, between Baseline and Guadalupe. Partly because I couldn't afford to live in the neighborhood that I grew up in anymore. And that is in part due to a lack of sufficient supply of housing. When we don't have enough supply, the housing that is available skyrockets in price. And what was a predominantly Spanish-speaking and low-income, multi-generational neighborhood in Tempe is now primarily white young professionals. I'm not saying that change in demographics is necessarily bad, but it's something that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at these things. And I think what we've talked about in terms of protecting the cultural heritage of the city, protecting the environment, sustainability, all of these components that have gone into this are something that I'm really proud of as a resident of Tempe and as someone who's grown up in this city. And I think the land use map, I'm drawn to the pictures, right? So I want to immediately go to the maps, look at all the pictures. Thank you for all of your photos, and Pika. That's what I want to go to immediately. And it's a little, for me, I can, going through all of the rest of the meat and potatoes of that, there is so much in there outside of that land use map, that the land use map, especially with that being a target for 2050, and with knowing that a lot of the changes that occurred in the 2040 plan never came to fruition over that time, that development that was expected didn't really happen. Like that seems like for me, compared to the rest of the plan, something I wouldn't want to hold up the process for when we still have opportunity for public input and opportunity for additional public involvement. So I would like to avoid throwing out the baby with the bathwater in this scenario. I'd like to see this move forward because there will still be opportunity for input, and the city staff has been very responsive to making adjustments. I'm confident that that's going to be something that continues. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my comments at that, but I think a lot of fantastic work has really been put into developing this plan, and I wouldn't want to slow down the process of making that fantastic work more concrete over the land use component that I'm completely confident to be flushed out before we get to a point where it's on the ballot. All right, who is next? Mirna?
I think my comments are more for points of clarification and timeline. I did vote to delay the vote. The last time that we met together was 10 days ago. And I thank you to the city staff as well for being able to incorporate and get back out into their neighborhoods to really make the changes that have been asked for. What I really want to understand is if I vote to delay this vote one more time and extend that timeline, what does that mean? What does that mean for us as commissioners? And what does that mean for the public? Will there be enough time for the public to keep providing their input and digest the information to be comfortable with this plan moving forward? Or are we going to be continuing to kind of delay until it's this sort of perfection that we are all seeking? I really truly want to understand if we say yes, if we say no, what does that mean for us going forward? Will we just receive the edits the day before, the day of as well? And we're going to continue to have to be making these changes over and over and over. So I guess that's more for the staff as far as what that means for us as commissioners to delay that or to move forward as an advisor group. Because I have been impressed with the changes that have been made. And I do agree there definitely are more changes that need to be made and more output out there. But for us, for this meeting right now, will we be moving it forward for the DRC for them to continue doing that? Or are we just kind of delaying something that we no longer have much authority over?
Chair, I can respond to that. So the DRC meetings have been advertised as required by the state statute. The DRC members actually got a copy of the initial draft that you saw on the native. They got it on April 13th. We had a preliminary draft, but we needed to send it to them 75 days in advance according to state statute. So the other jurisdiction in DRC have the draft. They will have any other comments that we gather with them on the 27th. And if you want, after the DRC, if you want to meet again and provide input again, we'll organize a meeting in July. We can continue to provide input on the first Tuesday. There is a month between the first introduction. So next week's meeting is basically just introducing the plan and having opportunity for the people to say whatever they want. And like Mr. Upton said, unless there is like a timeline, people just stay put. We've been sending postcards, we've been calling people, we've been going to different places, but until we had a draft and until some people had really concrete things to say, it was really hard. We heard from you and the technical advisory group. So the process will continue, but there is enough time between now and August 24th that we have planned with the council to make changes, to kind of organize. There are other points of view also. There are people who wanted the cultural resources area lifted from their property. So we also have to kind of listen to them. So yes, there would be enough time.
So to clarify then, you're saying that if we move forward with moving the draft.
The
to
meeting
DRC,
on July would be for information and providing the input, not for like, because it would be too late for the DRC. So if you, whatever you decide today, the DRC meeting is kind of advertised, but there will be opportunities for you and everyone, all the public, to continue to provide input to us. And if you want to maintain this platform, this commission is alive until 31st of December to meet as many times before the adoption and give us any input or give us any advice.
got it.
Yes.
Okay. In short, then we can keep going even if this gets passed on to the DRC to provide input as a community working group beyond today. Anne?
Yeah, just a quick question for Ambika.
Yes.
Once you have the new draft, since it did have quite a few changes, what would the public outreach be?
So the actual draft with all of the things that we discussed today would still be a draft. It will be released 1 week in advance of the DRC meeting. That is on the 20th of January or June. I even forget the months now because Jacob and I have been working with it. So every one of you will get to see the complete draft with whatever that has been discussed, including the public on the 20th of June. And so there will be 1 week for people to look at the draft and still go to the introductory meeting at the Development Review Commission. And you guys purposely put 1 month gap between the introduction and the actual hearing so that there is opportunities for people to digest and continue to provide input. To the document.
So the only feedback that the public would get would actually just be having to go to the DRC and either support it or not support it.
You can go to DRC, even after DRC, we have a comment form on the website, which is open completely. Any feedback that we receive on the plan, we always take it to the next meeting in the DRC, this is what we heard, and comments are read. And if there are any changes that are proposed, we kind of sort it through. So it's a continuing process.
So there's no more surveys on the
There
actual
is,
draft.
there is a comment card on the website.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I know the last one was for public comment, the last draft, so it seems like we're voting in the opposite things.
All right, so, sorry. to
Yeah.
cut you.
And I need clarification.
So discussion has concluded. Did we want to extend discussion?
About the DRC, I mean, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna vote on tonight, and if that says
Okay,
we're
that,
recommending it to go to the DRC, yes or no?
that is germane. So the motion that we're discussing is a motion to refer rather to advance the draft of the general plan to the DRC and council. So if a vote yes would have the effect of advancing it to the DRC and council, a vote no would prevent that from happening. All right. All right. Is there any motion to extend discussion further? Seeing none, we will go to a vote on whether to advance.
Maybe Chair, just point, sorry, point of,
Just a point of clarification, the Development Review Commission meeting has already been.
they will hear it either way. They would just get the
Yes.
community working group's vote of whether you approve the current or
Right,
the
so,
draft.
yeah, if a vote of recommendation would mean we would go to the DRC with the backing of this entity as a recommendation, like saying that you have heralded it through this process and that you are giving your blessing of the document itself.
Thank you for making me make sense. I appreciate it. Okay, so is that clear for everybody? Any additional clarification? needed before we vote?
hear that properly.
So far, so good?
Yeah, so
All right.
whatever is the vote, if they did hear, I'm speaking a little loud, so whatever is the vote tonight, that vote will be conveyed to the DRC meeting on the 27th. I think it's certain up or down either way.
Okay, so the power we have is essentially whether or not we are advising, whether or not we approve of the general plan. They are going to get it whether we approve of it or not.
Approval probably is not the best word, whether you want to forward it for the process.
Okay.
So you got those, both options are open.
Got it.
They will learn about both options and they will take that into consideration.
Okay. All right, is that clear as mud?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, everyone on the same page here? Before we vote, good, okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and move to the vote. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this.
Could you state the motion? First of all, there has to be a motion in second, so I think there was a motion.
We did have a motion and we had a second. We had a motion from Myrna and we had a second from Nolan.
Oh, okay, good.
Can you state what we're voting on again?
So the motion is on agenda item 6. It was a motion to recommend, or rather to advance the draft Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 for approval by the DRC and council.
With the changes noted. in the-
With the changes noted.
Yes.
Are we clear on the motion? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, we're all on the same page. Okay, so we'll.
Did you share if the people online here? To ask them?
Does anyone online have any questions about the motion?
Commission members online.
Any commission members online specifically?
No, I don't have I mean, the only question I was just like the clarification. I appreciate everybody clarifying everything. It's just that no matter how we vote, it's still gonna go. It's just gonna say whether we support it or not. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Donald says it seems clear. Okay, all right, seeing no additional comments online, we'll go ahead and move to the roll call vote. Myrna Bays,
I vote to not provide my approval, or what's the
so just a name,
name?
All right, Sydney, Bethel Price,
Yes.
Liliana Cardenas,
Nay.
JP Coughlin,
Yes.
Janelle Grenell,
No.
Patrick McNamara,
Yes.
Robert Moore.
No.
Donald Ortiz,
Yes.
Shane Peterlin, yes, either. All right, Service for Praharaj,
Yes, advance it.
I am voting yes.
Yes.
Catherine Schmidt,
Yes, advance it.
David Sokolowski.
No.
Ann Till,
No.
Logan Tokos,
Yeah.
Nolan Williams.
Yes, proudly.
All right. All right, we have 6 no's, 8 yes, so the yeses have it. The general plan 2050 draft will be recommended for
Chair,
it.
I count 9. So
You count 9 yeses?
just to verify, we have Sydney, JP.
Oh, yes, you're correct. It is 9. Okay, so 9. All right, we have a super majority. Okay, so the yeses have it. The motion to vote to advance the draft of the Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 for approval by the DRC and council has passed. All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is discussion and next steps for the Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050. City staff.
Yes, Chair and Commission members. Very quickly. So the next week on 20th, expect the complete draft. For you to take a look at it. It's still a draft. It will incorporate everything that we've heard so far. And then that will be made public on the 27th. There is an introduction at the DRC, which will be at the museum, at the library. And the public would be welcome. It's already been advertised. Anyone, if you want to come and state anything, that would also be done. And then there will be a month of the time based on what we hear from the advice that we get from the DRC and so on. We'll continue to work on the document. And then, like I said, the 25th of July will be the second hearing for them to make a recommendation in 2 weeks. And then we still continue with all the other kind of changes. So what we have done is we have a website where people can continue to give us comments so that you hear. And we'll continue with that one. That's all I have. Anything else that I missed?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make a comment about the upcoming DRC meetings, because Ann asked a question about the publication and notification about the revised draft getting out there and making sure that people are aware that there's been edits. So for the DRC, we did notification of a postcard mailing that's going to every property owner and every residential address in the city. So there was a mailing list of like 130,000 or something.
Quick, run, tell them.
So that's the notification that this item is going to the commission, right? And they're in like your notice to, hey, have a look at this document and support it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there.
The only other announcement that I have very quickly is, it's not only the staff that is grateful to you and the technical advisory group. The council, mayor, and everyone in the city, there is actually some appreciation event that is coming to you, and you'll be getting an email on that if you have it. Yeah, for your service and all of that.
Is that just the date and time, or is there text with it?
It's the standard postcard that we send for any of the development review commission meetings, but it has the dates of both DRC meetings, the dates of both scheduled council meetings, information that it is going to a ballot, and then links of where you can find information on the website about the plan.
Yeah, I just wondered because we got a postcard for last night's meeting and it
it didn't even, like, I was surprised anybody attended because it just sounded kind of unimportant. You know, so I think that's something to consider when writing postcards is actually to not, you know, to at least, you know, clarify what the impact might be, because, you know, I think the general plan is pretty important, but people didn't realize it till the end, you know, of the process, I think, you know. Anyway.
All right. So we do still have the remaining issue of future meetings. Is this something we can feel confident we can address
Absolutely.
informally?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can definitely talk to you, Chair, if you want to have a continuing input on the meeting, we'll organize a meeting, and listen to it from a formal platform. Or if you don't want to continue to meet and if you just want to give us input from another perspective, any particular mechanism is fine. Like we get a lot of input from, I think one of the email was what, 2 AM? or
Out of the
something?
100 that we've had.
Yeah.
You know, which one are you referring to? No, I'm kidding.
So it's welcome either way. I'll talk to you
And
separately.
we all get along well enough for another meeting, right?
Yes.
Well, there's a, you know, something like we do at work, is that lessons learned, you know? So that, I don't know if that'd be useful or not. That we do it at the end of each couple of month cycle, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know if there's enough comments on that, but, you know, it might be, maybe
So
it's something you can get from the public either, you know?
what I will recommend then is Ambika and I can touch base on subsequent meetings. If we can't discuss anything of substance via email, but if there's any, we have to convene a meeting for that. So
There are some open meeting laws situations. If there's a particular adopted agenda, if the majority of the people meet informally, you sometimes have to tell us so that we can publicly notify. But less than the quorum, you can discuss. Or you can discuss, if you want to discuss in a bigger group, you can discuss it through us. You can send email and then we can send it to everyone. So either way is fine. If you still, if you are fond of meeting us every month, we can make that happen. But if you want to take some summer break, that is also fine, and let us know individually also.
So I think we all have each other's email addresses. So if I just want to emphasize that if you do have suggestions on frequency or time dates, what have you regarding upcoming meetings, just make sure to CC the city of Tempe staff on it. So there's not any discussions happening outside of the ability for public notification if enough people are involved.
And the best person would be Joanna.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close discussion on item 7. Do we have any additional announcements that we need to
Not
do?
from our side, Jacob. So have we missed anything?
All right.
I wanted to quickly announce, I just wanted to thank Ambika too for all your work and effort, you know, respectfully. I already thanked Jacob on the meeting. This is your thank you. But I really appreciate it and all, you know, just you as a professional too, and your global perspective. And we're really fortunate to have you in the equation. And sometimes we don't appreciate people around us or who's involved in the process. So I just want to really respectfully thank you for all your input and who you are and how you contribute to this and Tempe too. So thank you.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's the undertone. Yeah. Also, you know, and another person, Brenda's not here with us either. And I know that she did a ton of neighborhood work as well. And I wanted to thank her ghost forever.
It is actually the team, all the team, but I'm glad to take some credit, but it's the team.
Well, I just, yeah, I feel really fortunate for our city staff that we have, you know, especially neighborhood services, because you guys do so much for us. And, you know, every time people complain about you guys, I'm kind of like, you guys don't understand, you know, how difficult it is because, you know, people complain all the time. You probably get more complaints than anything.
Perfectly fine. It's part of
You know, so.
And you've seen the kind of math and other things that Jacob makes. Everything is forgotten.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah, it's like you guys do really, you know, the city does a lot in Tempe for us.
We appreciate it. Absolutely.
All right. Do we have any other announcements?
Joanna too.
We love it.
All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and close out the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn from Jenna Lynn, second from Nolan. Any opposed? Seeing none, we are adjourned.